Hello, everyone. My name is still Mumbles, and ya boy is back with some more Killing Floor 2. It's been, I think, 1.5 months since I've actually recorded anything, and I wanted to, jump back in and kind of, I guess, discuss what's been going on while I was gone. I would love to, say that there was a very legitimate reason while I was gone, but really I just kind of forgot to do stuff in terms of, recording and gameplay stuff. I would say I feel bad, but it would be a lie, to be honest with you. But I had a lot of stuff that I was, busy with. And now I have a lot of stuff to talk about as a consequence after we did some of that. So I just figured we'd play a little bit, and by a little bit I mean probably over an hour of good old Killing Floor Endless. This time with Firebuggy, which is something we've never actually done. And I chose this perk precisely because it's very easy to talk over, because you have to put in, absolutely no effort to kill every single thing that the game throws at you. It's kind of ridiculous how that works, actually. But yeah, I don't think we'll be talking about the game a lot, because I much prefer to discuss, personal stuff, I guess. I think it might be more interesting for everybody. I mean, not for me. I've already, done all of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, but nonetheless, we're going to feign interest, I suppose, in our own affairs, for better or worse. So what's been going on since, September 6th? Well, a lot, actually, I guess this is oh god, self-docs, but, some people might think, September, disappearing and whatnot, maybe busy with, school or whatever. No, dude, I've been out of education for quite a few years, actually. I'm in, my late 20s, actually. Which, I don't know, who cares about. Could we get, yeah, we can get the Dragon's Breath. Cool. But yeah, so I'm in my late 20s. I've been working, actually, for a number of years now. I even used to have my own business, which is something I'll get into in a little bit, actually, because it kind of ties into, a number of the topics that we'll hopefully get to during the video here. But pretty much, with work stuff, I work, in, a business management position, pretty much. I do a lot of, company, representation. I go to, all sorts of events. Just, a couple of, day-to-day things, mostly, office kind of work. And the whole pandemic situation has happened and is still ongoing kind of everywhere, for better or worse. And over the last 1.5 years, not a lot of business events were actually held for obvious reasons, because people were mostly quarantining, having those quarantinis and all that. But more importantly, folks were just trying to isolate themselves to kind of slow or potentially stop the spread of the virus. Which is the responsible thing to do, nothing wrong with that. However, at a certain point, things kind of need to keep going on, and now I feel like we've reached that point where, in order for industry as a concept to still exist in any, shape or form, we kind of need to, keep doing the things we were doing before the whole pandemic began. So a lot of the business events are now, still, well, not still, but again, are now being held, actually in person. Not just online. And that's a lot of fun because, people, I think, were missing that kind of interaction. And it's also, there's, something about actually, seeing somebody face-to-face, no matter the context, I think, that makes it very different to interact with them. Whether that's, official business stuff or just anything else, to be honest, it's just easier, You get to see the nonverbal cues, you get to, hear the inflection more, you don't run into the same technical issues that you might run into online. And I know it's very, funny discussing all these issues in an online video, because it's kind of yeah, bro, you're talking about personal stuff, and meanwhile you're making videos for, the faceless masses on YouTube. The masses being, literally 2 people, maybe. But whatever. Yeah, I noticed the irony in it, don't get me wrong. But still. So one of these events was held in Slovenia, and I basically, had to go there with a colleague of mine. It was quite exciting, actually. That happened in the middle of September, so I want to say about 10 days after the last video was uploaded, and it was kind of exciting, mostly because what basically happened was we had a sales colleague at the company that I work at, and she ended up leaving in the middle of summer, basically, because she wanted to pursue different things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but unfortunately, she kind of left on, a short notice, had, she still had some of her paid, vacation available. And what you can do when something like that happens at a job is, a lot of the times, at least in my experience, and obviously this is, a very comfortable thing to do, you might take your days off as you basically quit your job to shorten that time that you still gotta work. Because obviously, you might have different prospects lined up, or you might just be like sick of the position that you were in and need a break, basically. And again, I don't begrudge anybody for doing that. I need to mention, like, hey, dude, like, if you got those days, they're yours. You get to do what you want with them. So in this case, the only downside was we weren't able to get anybody to fill the position on, like, a short notice. So I basically, like, had to fill in for her, which was actually kind of fun, to be honest. Doing, like, the sales duties was kind of amusing. I also feel that it was kind of the best time during the summer to have, a little taste of that kind of work. Mostly because it wasn't as heavy as I think it normally is. During the summer, a lot of people also go on vacations, so the workload wasn't quite as bad as I think it can get. I don't know, like maybe now-ish, I guess. I'm gonna get to the point here, but we have a new colleague since a while ago now, and I mean I can tell that in August, for example, this stuff was still not as rough as it is now for him. But yeah, so essentially, like my old sales colleague left. I kind of filled in for her, and it was a lot of fun. But in September, well, at the end of August, really, we ended up getting, like, a new sales colleague. And he's great. Like, I love the guy. He's just fantastic, got a great personality, hard worker. Just, like, completely the guy you want for a job like this, in my opinion. Very, very good with people as well. Great social skills. However, I didn't really know him. I think I met him one time after, like, the job interview, and, after he accepted the position. Like, he came in for an interview, he was offered the position, and I think I met him after, like, one time, probably 2 weeks before he started work, when he came in to, like, discuss, the terms of the job, basically. So I don't get me wrong, like, I don't have a problem with not knowing people that well, but it was a little bit like, okay, like, he's a dude. He's a colleague, obviously. Normally, that's not an issue if you don't know someone super well. In my case, again, it wasn't an issue, but I was going to go to this event in Slovenia, and because he's, the new salesperson at the company, I was going to go with him. It was going to be the two of us, like, driving there, hanging out there, and the whole thing was essentially a week-long, thing that we took part in. So there was a part of me that was very worried about that, because you don't know someone, you might, like, I don't know, not like them. There's always that fear, I think, in people, where you're like, oh no, what if I don't like this person? But I didn't really, I kept an open mind, and I don't think, like, oh, it's because I kept an open mind that everything went so well, because that has very little to do with it. Although I think the attitude you go into a situation matters quite a bit. But it was more than fine. The guy was great. I ended up, like, learning some stuff about myself that was also really, really cool. For example, I really like driving to begin with. Like, I quite enjoy the activity. But I got my license pretty late. Like, I was already, in my 20s by the time I got my driver's license. But that's because I lived abroad for a number of years. And while I was taking driving lessons, like, every now and then when I came home, I really wasn't in a position to kind of, like, take the driver's test and be like, yeah, like, give me that license. And even if I had, had done that, I don't know when I would have used the fresh and crisp, like, driving license. I just don't know. So I would say that, I have fun driving, but I would mostly call myself, like, an inexperienced driver. We should probably throw a Molotov, huh? Yeah, there we go. Free damage. Another couple mollies. So for example, I haven't really, like, gone out of my way to drive a lot. Like, I've driven around my home country, basically, kind of like, but, it's not really the same, like, maybe a couple 100 kilometers here and there, but not, like, super large distances. So you always have that little fear in you when you go on, like, a longer trip to a farther destination where you're like, oh man, like, will I be able to pull that off? And I mean, the cool thing is that my colleague would have had my back for sure. Like, he's also an experienced driver. I'm pretty sure he used to drive, like, trucks at a certain point in his life as, like, an intermediate thing when he kind of didn't have anything else going on. I'm thinking, do we upgrade to some other stuff? I feel like we do. We can officially now completely ignore the game because we got the Thermite Bore, and it's very powerful. But yeah, so one of the things that I had a lot of fun with was actually driving the car, and I drove the whole way to the destination, which was, I think, something like 600 kilometers. It was kind of most of a day, like almost a day-long trip, basically. Like half a day is what I would say. So it was pretty far, but it was a lot of fun actually, and it was good to do it in like the company car, not my own vehicle as well. That's like kind of always interesting as well, because it's a lesson in adaptation. Like obviously in your own vehicle, there's certain things that you kind of like know how stuff is gonna like go down with your own car. The little quirks and whatnot. But in the company vehicle, you might not know those things. You can't rely on the same muscle memory for all intents and purposes, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, like I said, I think it's more interesting and more exciting if you actually get a little bit of variety with stuff like that, which is kind of what I was gunning for. And I had a lot of fun with it actually. Like I drove the way there, and spoiler, I drove the entire way back as well. But I didn't do that because I felt like I had to. Like it wasn't a case of like feeling like I don't trust my colleague with the vehicle. It just came down to like, yo, I'm having a lot of fun driving this car because it's kind of cool. It's kind of like still new, and people like especially in Slovenia are just really chill. At least on the roads, in my experience, no one really minds how you drive. I wouldn't say that it's quite so bad like in other places, but I don't know, man. You sometimes think like, oh god, like you can obviously get into situations in traffic when you worry that the other person like behind you or people. You can sometimes like entire lines form because you kind of don't know like the area. You're kind of still insecure about like where you might need to like get off the road, basically which turn you're gonna have to take, or even if you use like the GPS, you'd be like, oh well, that's where I need to go, but I haven't ever gone there, so I'm still scared a little. It's a whole thing, and obviously that little hesitation shows up when you're actually driving. So you might be going slower, you might like take your turns a little weirder than normal. And I think sometimes people behind you get upset. Especially this, I think, happens a lot when you're driving just around in your city, basically. You notice people that you can just tell when someone hasn't really like been in the area too much. It's kind of obvious. It's almost like a non-verbal thing that happens with the car that you can kind of notice. The way it accelerates, the way it decelerates, all that stuff. The pedal work just doesn't add up. And I always worry that, the folks behind me are like, oh my god, this idiot, like, just get off the road, dude, they're literally gonna make me late. But thankfully, I didn't get that at all when I was in Slovenia. People were just mega chill. They were just like, yo, like, just go whatever speed you're really comfortable with. I don't really care. Like, I'll get wherever I need to go. No problems. And that was very pleasant. So, like, that fear of mine was completely unfounded, and it ended up being more than fine, which was very pleasant. Once we actually got to the event was kind of a good time too. I mean, I haven't been to like a business event like this in, well, probably like 2 years at this point. Obviously, partially because of the whole pandemic situation as well. Like, they haven't really held a lot of these in a while now. So it was good to be back in that situation. It was very nice, and I think people really like missed the opportunity to meet up with other businessmen and businesswomen in person and be able to just discuss things and make like good progress in like a short span of time. That's the thing that maybe I think folks miss the most because of the pandemic, because in the online sphere you can set up meetings, you can have a lot of meetings, but I think for some reason people were maybe less efficient with these things. I don't know, when you're in person and you have to make like an actual trip to go and visit somebody's like headquarters or whatever, then I think maybe you have like a little bit of positive pressure on you to make the most of it. Because you can't just, do it next week. You can't just do it in 2 days again. And you don't really have that when it's just an online meeting, which is totally fine, but I think it lends the entire encounter a very different air, basically. So this was very pleasant. The whole event was very good. The one thing I will say was terribly tiring. Like, we left early in the AMs, and because we had to get there on time to prepare for the event a little bit, make sure that our stand was at least like constructed. We thankfully didn't have to do the construction work ourselves. We took part with a larger organization that handled that for us, but nonetheless, you got to go there to at least check in and be like, all right, like, is everything in place? Can we actually do stuff now? Well, not now, but the next day. And luckily, nothing went wrong in that regard. But still, in order to do that, you got to actually like wake up super early to take care of everything, to make sure you get there on time, pretty much, to be able to check in. And I mean, while we're on the topic of checking in, obviously the hotel, you got to check in there. We did the online check-in, which is very, very convenient these days. It does mean that you are completely aware, like, when you can get to the place, when they expect you. And if you go there earlier, then because you did the online check-in, you can't even play the card of, like, well, I didn't know that you can't, like, check in until, I don't know, like, 5 p.m. By the way, I don't think it was, I don't think you needed to wait until 5 p.m. to check in. I can't remember. I think we probably got there at 5 p.m., but that's because we needed, like, stuff to do in the early afternoon. So there was no reason for us to go there any earlier than that. But yeah, so, I mean, everything went really smoothly, but it was very tiring. The way there was mostly okay, despite what I just said, like, long trip and waking up early. Normally not, like, the best combination. But it was mostly okay in that regard, because you kind of, you knew the terms of the job when you set up for it. You're like, yeah, like, gonna be, like, a 5 a.m. wake up, and we're gonna drive the car, and then we're gonna go to a place, and we're gonna make sure stuff is good, and then eventually, in the evening, we'll get to, like, a hotel, find a bed, and just sleep. And that's exactly how it went down. The rest of the days, though, I mean, they're tiring. I think each day we did about, like, 11 hours of being at the event, except, I think, the second day, because there was another event in the evening that we had to go to, which, again, totally fine. Like, I don't mean to complain, but if you do, like, 5 11-hour days, by the end of it, you're a little tired, let me tell you. I mean, I was. Maybe some people don't get tired. Like, I can believe that. Some folks might be like, I didn't really care. I was tired once, didn't care for it. Funnily enough, most of the time I'm like that, but with this event it was a little different. Still, it was a lot of fun, very tiring though, and it took me a while to, even once we got back, to really, feel like myself again. And I don't want to say, like, that's why I haven't been recording, because, no, that's not really the reason why. But still, I did appreciate the fact that I could just take some time alone after that. I mean, there were some other business events still in September. There was one other trip that I went on, but that was more local. Like, it was just, like, a 2-hour drive, and then, like, a couple hours there. It was a little bit, like, a longer day. I think it was, like, a longer Thursday than usual, but still easily manageable for all intents and purposes. So that was a good time, and I mean, the cool thing about these events, and one of the reasons why it's very fun, like, taking part in anything like this, in my experience, is mostly because you never really know what else might happen, because, you're meeting all sorts of other people, and a lot of the times, even in a business setting, you can totally get, like, very different experiences, like, make friends with people, potentially, like, romantic stuff might happen as well. Not necessarily in the business context, but, it's not impossible, to be completely honest. So the interesting thing for me, actually, was that at the hotel, I was able, like, even though we weren't there, a lot, because as I mentioned, we had, like, 11-hour-long days, we basically still, like, spent each evening trying to socialize with either the people from, like, the organization or some of the entertainers, because one of the other, like, attendees, I guess, had a couple, like, like, entertainers set up for the actual, like, daily events and whatnot that they did. They were more there kind of to, to lure the people in, and then they would stick around in their, like, area, and then they'd get, like, hit with all the advertisements and whatnot, all the business stuff. You gotta get the people in the door. So we tried, like, to hang out with those people a lot, and I also had the pleasure of meeting a very good friend there. Well, now she's a very good friend, but, I didn't know her before I actually, like, attended the event. It was really fun, actually. We met over, like, one of the dinners at the hotel, spent, like, an entire evening just, like, talking. I think it was, like, 3 or 4 hours, basically. We both, like, went over our bedtime pretty much, and that might seem silly, because I mentioned, like, oh yeah, like, I'm in my late 20s and had a bedtime, but, it was a self-appointed bedtime. I didn't, like, no one told me that I needed to be in bed by 10. I decided for myself that it would be best if I went to sleep at 10, because I'm waking up at, like, 6 tomorrow, and it would be nice to get some sleep. By the way, I never managed to do that during the whole event. Like, 5 days? Each and every day, I went over that. And this isn't a complaint, it's just a confession, if anything. But yeah, it was a really good time, and like I said, it's the kind of thing that I didn't expect to happen at all. Like, I just thought, yeah, I'd go there, maybe hopefully, like, make some business connections, like, make sure that people know about the company, make sure we do what we were basically sent there to do, because that's kind of the point, that's what you hope for, right? Like, I would have been fine if it was just that, but thankfully it was more than that in that regard. It's always nice to meet new people. So that was a fun time. That was a fun time for the most part. That was basically September. both events. You know, a little not chronological. I think Quentin Tarantino would approve of this, because I mentioned the one event, and then I briefly got into the second event, and now we're back in the first event. So yeah, like I said, like I think this is a very like Tarantino-esque way of retelling the story. Can I just kill him? It would be nice. Yeah, there we go. So I think that was most of my September, and then my October. Well, while this was going on, this is another nice little bit here that will, you know, add even more to the unchronological presentation. Because while I was taking part in this event, one of my other hobbies is tabletop wargaming, especially Warhammer. Like, I basically am just a GW stan, like a Games Workshop fanboy in that regard. If you can really call it, sometimes I'm critical of what they do, but I still, you know, like, play their games essentially, almost exclusively, I would say. I have tried some other stuff and had, like, good experiences, but, you know, you stick with what you know, pretty much. So either way, but I'm not just like a guy that plays those games. I'm pretty deep in there. The thing I mentioned is I had my own business for 4 years, and that was actually a tabletop wargaming like specialist store, which ended up closing right before COVID. And you know, before the topic comes up, no, it didn't close because of the pandemic. I basically closed it for other reasons, which we can get into at like a later date, but I feel like it would detract from the video here right now. Not that we really have like a proper train of thought here, but we can pretend that we do, and I mean, I'm always happy to pretend that we're making any amount of sense. That's usually what people, you know, hope to do when they talk. I think I fail at it most of the time. I'm very good at the talking, very bad at the making sense. But I at least hope that it's entertaining. But either way, as I said, because, you know, I was kind of involved in the actual store stuff as well, obviously I'm kind of more than just a dude that collects the models. I don't just, like, gray-hide, like, I paint my stuff. Most of it is painted anyway. Obviously, I have a lot more that isn't, because that's just unavoidable for the most part when you get to a certain point. Well, I mean, it could be avoidable if you had, like, proper self-control. I don't. So what are you going to do about it? But still. So I basically, at the end of August, by the time you guys got the last video, I had already decided that I was going to do a tabletop tournament. It was going to be a Warhammer Age of Sigmar tournament, because I really, really like that game. I've been playing it since it came out. I played a bit of, like, Warhammer Fantasy back in the day. I'm going to have, like, an unpopular opinion, and maybe people will hate me for it, I'm not sure. But I wasn't ever, like, a huge Warhammer Fantasy guy. The game was fine. I really had a good time playing it with my friends, but the rule set just didn't do it for me for some reason. I think maybe I was too young, and I had, like, different interests. Because I really like the gameplay stuff in general. I like mechanics, I like, you know, rules, I like rule interactions, and for some reason with Warhammer Fantasy, I never got those positive experiences that would have, you know, sold it to me just like other people. Because other folks really loved that game, man. I was always jealous of other people being crazy about this game. Well, Warhammer Fantasy, not this game, not Killing Floor. Although a Killing Floor tabletop game could be interesting. I don't know how you would do it, though. Maybe as a board game you could pull it off. There you go, Tripwire. There's your $1 million idea. You can just give me like 5%. We'll be fine. I'll be out of your hair in no time. But yeah, so I decided to hold a tournament, and I like to, you know, actually put out the date of the tournament, like give all the information out about a month in advance, so people can prepare. People can, you know, try out like different armies. They can experiment with different army lists and whatnot. Kind of give them the idea that, like, yeah, if you really want to get, you know, if you really want to be a sweaty tryhard about this, you can totally do that. That option is available to you. And I mean, some people, you know, take that. Some people take the game seriously in that regard, and they want to actually have, like, you know, good finishing position at the tournament. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I don't look down on the I guess power gamers, some people call them. I don't really make that distinction in the same way. Like, I think, you know, there's gamers, and some people don't care about winning or losing at a tournament, but at the end of the day, most people care to some degree. And that's, again, totally fine. Like, if you didn't care, then if you don't care at all, you probably didn't go. And there's nothing wrong with not going, but realistically, though, you know, if you didn't, like, go, then again, you just didn't care. And that's totally fine. But if you're already at the event, then you probably care a little bit, right? I forgot that the Scorcher is like a one-shot at this difficulty, if it's a headshot, which that one wasn't, but it's very interesting, you know, you sometimes got to touch upon the game. So I had the And I'm a boomer in this regard. I already like doxed myself with the age, but like I made like a Facebook event for the event, which sounds a little redundant, and I guess it is. But like I put that out like a month in advance, had the little like document for it like available online so people could read like what the rules were. Although it's really simple, I didn't do like any restrictions or whatnot. And when it comes to these things, I really prefer to just, play the game as it kind of exists. And obviously there's always going to be bad things in it. It's going to be combos that people might not like. There's going to be like overpowered factions and underpowered factions. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And like I don't take it upon myself to be like an arbiter of balance because frankly, I think people that get paid money to do that might be better at it than I am. Like I think there's another dude on YouTube, Haywo, who actually does like Age of Sigmar content, and I might like put his channel in the description for anybody that's interested, because I do love the style that he does. Essentially, he has like a great sense of presentation, and I mean he's very informative as well, very useful stuff. And I think he said it himself that essentially like players of a game are more like the canary in a coal mine. Like you can tell if something is wrong, but you shouldn't listen to them for the solution because they don't know how to fix the problem. They merely will notice the problem. Like they will feel that something is wrong, but that's the best you can kind of hope for from them. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's more progressive of yourself as a player to admit that realistically and be like, look, I'm not the guy that's going to fix the issue. I'm the guy that's going to notice that something is wrong in the first place. Getting a little chaotic here. Let's throw a molly and just, hope for the best here. I was just hoping that we'd get the area so that we can leave. Which we did. Wonderful. But yeah, so I had the event mostly by the book, and it was a good time. But I was also, working away at making sure that there's plenty of hype going forward. Because in my experience, that's one of the unspoken things about making, like, any kind of event, but especially, like, tabletop wargaming, where some people might be super excited about, preparing for it. Some people might be super excited about taking part. But at the end of the day, it's very easy to kind of almost forget when an event is coming up. And I've seen it with other people. Most of the time, I'm not one of those people. Like, if I go to an event, I know weeks in advance, and it's always, like, very much, like at the forefront of my brain. I'm constantly thinking like, okay. So like at the end of the month, I'm going to this thing. Do I have like my stuff painted? Is there something that I still need to do? Do I still need to like clear something with the organizer? But I realize that I'm not your average person in that regard. Like a lot of people just don't care, and it's totally fine. But I think as an organizer, it's kind of your duty to make them care, which is what I try to do by just littering like Facebook full of posts about all sorts of nonsense kind of related to the event. So I kind of took upon like almost a second job doing that, writing a lot of material and scheduling it. And I gotta say, dude, like the real MVP of the whole event was the Facebook scheduling functionality, because if I had to post everything manually, oh god, that would have been not a fun time. Let me tell you. This was a lot easier when you can just like automate it and be like, yeah, it's fine. Like, eventually it'll get released. I just have to write it and pick like pictures for it, which is still a job, by the way. Like that's still an entire thing that needs to be done. But it's a lot easier when you don't have to, like, I don't know, at like 9 a.m. sharp just do the thing while you're doing other stuff. Because as I mentioned, I have a job like in addition to this. So, like, you're probably 9 a.m. on, like, a Monday. You might be busy, I don't know, maybe doing your actual job. I know, unheard of, but people have those. So, thankfully, I was able to get, like, proper hype for the event. And, I mean, I'm very pleased to say that I had, like, 14 people take part, which is a new record for me. This wasn't the first event that I've held. I think, I don't want to lie, but I've done probably, like, 10 or over 10 at this point. I mean, probably over 10, to be honest, if we count everything. Because I also used to do, like, X-Wing stuff back in, like, 1st edition X-Wing. Man, that was a fun game, wasn't it? Don't get me wrong, 2nd it is still alright. I have, like, limited experience with it, though I just didn't make the transition, but I'm sure it's still good. But either way, I think this was the largest event in terms of attendance that I've done. And it's always, like, a pleasing situation to be in when you're like, yeah, dude, like, I did more than I did previously. I think that's maybe not what you always aim for, but it's very good because it gives you that feeling of progress that I think humans in general just look for in the world. Like, it's good to feel like you're improving and not just stagnating or potentially, getting worse. So that was a super fun time, and I mean, that's what happened at the beginning of October. So after all the business event nonsense was over with, I had my own event that I had to take care of, but it was a wonderful time. Thankfully, other than like writing stuff and checking army lists, I didn't need to do a lot. I had like some orders in the mail that needed to arrive, like some terrain and such, because I wanted to make sure that, you know, the boards were like pretty nice looking. But it was a good time, and people had fun, so, you know, objective completed, I guess. Like, mission not failed successfully, because we actually successfully made the mission. So that was the beginning of October. And I mean, I want to tell you that a lot of stuff has been happening in the rest of October, but I'd have to lie to you because not a whole lot has actually been going on in October, which is kind of now the point where when I get a little ashamed and potentially embarrassed, because up until this point, based on the things I've been saying, you know, I might have had a good excuse not to upload after, like, September 6th. And maybe, you know, even at the beginning of October, you're like, well, you know, it's just a wargaming event, but maybe you believe me and you're like, well, it was a lot of work, and you're willing to excuse the lack of uploads. But, I mean, I got nothing for, like, the last 2 weeks, to be honest with you. Like, I'm trying to think about it, but I'm drawing a blank. I guess I can still, you know, instead of talking about how it's like, oh, so busy, I can talk about other stuff, because there's always other stuff to talk about. That's the beauty of life in general. There's always more. I'm just going to explode him so that he maybe, like, burns to death. I mean, he's going to. Let's talk briefly about the game, even though this is the easiest boss for Firebug. Then you can see why, because you can just get him stuck in a loop. But yeah, I think this is the portion of the video now where, you know, like, we've recapped with what has happened in the past, and we can go farther back, funnily enough, because I think that's what we're going to do. I guess, you know, we're going back into more anecdotes, more stuff from my life, unless, you know, you have something to say, which, spoiler if you do, I really appreciate it, but I can't exactly interact with it right now at the time of recording, because time doesn't work like that based on our perception, unfortunately. Like, you technically will leave the comment in the future, and this will be the past by that point. It's very confusing. Recording stuff, man. Let me take a quick drink. So, I guess the one thing that happened in the meantime, and funnily enough, this is, like, more in the past. This is, I think, early August, actually. But something did happen in August, without, like, me realizing. Oh, how lucky with this area. But something did happen in August, and I never realized it, and I only really got told about it, I think, last week. And I feel really dumb in hindsight, to be honest, but also really mad. And, like, you know, like, mad, I guess, at a multitude of people. One of them is me, to be honest with you, which that's not a new emotion, to be honest. Like, that happens sometimes. But the whole being mad at somebody else, that's kind of new to me, because most of the time I'm like, whatever. Like, I try not to be mad at other people, because maybe it's not fair to them. You know, they might not realize that, you know, they upset me or whatever, but like, I can be mad at myself all the time. Like, I do all sorts of, like, awful crap, man. Don't even mention any of that. But pretty much, I was involved in a party, and it was a weird party. Like, I can just come out and say it, basically. And, you know, this is the real feel hours that might be, like, super relatable to some folks. And I'm sure, like, you know, some other people have been in this situation, been in a similar situation, at least, maybe not the same, because if you've been in the same situation, like, with the same people, then I guess, I don't know, I have a couple questions, like, how do you know these people, and also, who are you? But essentially what I'm trying to say is, the situation I found myself in was, there's a group of friends that, you know, I sometimes hang out with, and they're great folks. Well, that's what I'll say for now. Like, I'll say that for now, and we'll get to the rest in a second. But pretty much, I would hang out with these people every now and then, not super frequently, but, like, frequently enough where, you know, like, you kind of know them, or at least feel like you know them pretty well. And I think that's a good thing, you know, having more friends, usually a good time. Being able to go out with, like, a variety of people, also pretty good. You get, you know, multiple different perspectives on life. That's kind of what you want. You get more looks at the human condition. Let's be very highbrow and put it that way. But pretty much, there was one girl in the group that from the very beginning, since like I've been involved with the entire group, I've been interested in. Because I frankly thought that she was gorgeous. We started talking, and I was like, man, like she's also like really clever. Like I kind of like had a crush on her for all intents and purposes. And I'm not one of those people that, like sits on these things a lot, to be honest, because I would rather know kind of right out the gate whether or not there's any chance of like a relationship happening in that regard or not. I guess I prefer to know. Because even if it's not going to happen, I would just rather be like, well, at least, I took my shot. Even if it wasn't the best shot I could have taken, at least, now I don't have to wonder. So, like I said, because of that attitude, I very quickly ended up, like, essentially, like, trying to basically, like, get together with the girl, like, trying to date her. And it didn't work out. In that regard, she wasn't interested, which is a totally fine situation to be in. We basically agreed to still be friends, but I told her, like, basically, like, afterwards that because of the whole, like, rejection thing, and this isn't, like, a penalization, I didn't view it as, like, oh, this is your punishment for not dating me. I viewed it more as, like, I think it's a reasonable thing to do, and probably better for everyone else, to be honest. It's, like, I would rather only hang out with you, like, when other people are involved, because I think that is a lot more reasonable than still, like, doing the whole, let's, like, meet up, like, once every 2 weeks, or, like, every week, even though, like, we're not gonna, like, take it anywhere else, and that would have been my hope. And, again, thankfully, she was very nice about it, and was accommodating, basically, with my request, so that was good. However, the last time that I hung out with this group was at this party in August, and I felt very weird about it, to be honest with you, because I felt like people were kind of, how do I put it, like, people were, like, focused in on me, I guess. Like, paying very close attention to how I was acting and whatnot. I'm pretty, like, socially sensitive, so it's very easy for me to notice, like, these things. And the problem I had was it was very obvious that folks were like, I guess, watching out for my reaction, but I didn't really know what was going on at the time. The context I can give you, and you might, like, figure it out with the preamble that I've done here, is it was supposed to be a party for this girl, and she ended up showing up pretty late, and she showed up with a guy. But what's weird is, based on, like, the information that I knew, and everyone else claimed to have known the same information, she was already in a committed relationship with somebody else. So it was very confusing, to be honest with you. And didn't make a lot of sense. For anybody, really. And people were very, like, pushy about, like, oh, well, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? And that's the part where, I got, like, a little freaked out, where I'm just like, I don't know, like, am I supposed to really care about it? Or, like, people really wanted me to care, is the impression I got. I think that was a really nice, like, little trick that we did there. Let's try not to die to a flesh pound while we tell this story. Even though it's boom, and technically we easily could. But yeah, like, and apparently what happened was, like, we were at, like, a neutral space. We met up at a bar, as you do. And afterwards, we basically were there until closing time, and we still wanted to, like, hang out. So you do what, you would do in that situation and take the party elsewhere. And the place we ended up going was, like, my flat. And I didn't mind, to be honest, because in, like, the year or so that I've known these people, I've never actually been a host to them. And I actually kind of enjoy being the host of any kind of party. Like, a lot of people prefer to just, like, take part in a party. A lot of other people, like, I guess, like, being, like, like a secondary organizer, like, bringing some kind of food or whatever. Like, just doing, like, nice things, but not actually, like, being the host, not giving the location or whatever, like, not providing the location, to be honest. And that's totally fine. I think, different people, that's how we, teamwork makes the dream work. But I personally enjoy, actually, like, being, I don't know, like, providing both the location and also, like, maybe coming up with some ideas on what to do, making sure everyone has, like, drinks and food and whatnot. But because, this was more of an ad hoc thing, I obviously couldn't do, like, preparation in advance. I just kind of was lucky that I had, like, enough stuff in and around the flat that I could make sure that everyone, like, had a place to sit and everyone had, like, a drink, basically. So that was a good time. Well, I thought. Apparently, though, and, this sometimes happens, like, I made a couple, like, mistakes, basically, in the process of doing this, and got very upset. And the problem is that as the night went on and on, you obviously, like, engage in a little bit of drinking, And sometimes you get to a point, this doesn't happen to me very often, to be honest, but sometimes you get to a point where you might not really be aware of your actions anymore, and you can definitely reach a point with alcohol where you have so much of it that your brain just, like, just stops to keeping track of your actions. That's called getting, essentially, a blackout. When you just, like, the next day have no idea what the hell happened. And I'm not proud to say it, but that's what happened with me. And apparently in a state that I simply do not remember. I did some, I guess, regrettable actions in that regard. Like, I didn't behave like my normal self and upset some people, which I'm definitely not, like, proud about. And, I don't, I don't doubt that happened, because I don't really see, normally I would say I don't really see why people would lie about this, and I will get to my point in a second. So, like, I understand that may have happened. However, the problem is, essentially, what I learned most recently was that the little drama, the little, like, extra sensitivity towards my reactions, and, everything that I kind of noticed was all actually, like, a deliberate thing. It was all part of a little prank that apparently people were pulling on me, because basically this girl in question kind of wanted to get, like, a jealous reaction out of me. I don't understand how or why, to be honest, like, what made her decide to do this. And I didn't really think that, that this was the kind of thing she would do, based on, like, the amount of time that I've known her. But she decided to do this, and it was very, very frustrating learning later on, like, literally earlier, well, not earlier this week, but, like, last weekend, that apparently I was kind of, put up to this. It was a setup. And not only was it a setup, but eventually I gave people the reaction that they wanted, where I got, like, upset about it, I guess. Like, they could tell when I was drunk that I was upset, because I wasn't, like, I at that point let it show. I think I was upset about it a little earlier, but you obviously are, like, social enough where you're like, look, like, this might be how I feel, but I don't necessarily, like, want to, like, sour the mood, and I'm not, like, the center of attention here. But, you lose your better judgment when you have enough to drink, unfortunately. Which is kind of what happened with me, at least. But either way, the worst part is, I gave people the reaction that they wanted, and they still got super upset, and they still basically kind of hate me now, from what I understand. And it kind of blows, to be honest, because it feels like they decided previously, honestly, like, the way I see it, and I have, like, no way of fact-checking this, but my impression of the events is that this is probably, like, an incomplete version of the story that I'm getting here, and I assume that what happened is I already made some kind of blunder that I never noticed before that upset people. They, instead of, confronting me about it and setting things right, or giving me the option to maybe try to, I guess, make up for it, at least apologize, like, a normal person would, it feels like they kind of decided, maybe not together as a committee, but at least, like, as people, came to the conclusion, like, hey, maybe we don't want to hang out with this person, but we need, like, a reason to eject him from our lives, and they basically set me up, and I failed the little crap test there, essentially. And I don't know, like, it's one of those confusing situations where there's definitely a part of me that is upset about it, because, it's like, oh, man. But then there's another part of me that's just like, well, anybody that would do something like that is kind of maybe not a good person, so maybe it's good that I don't engage with these people anymore. But again, there's that, oh man, voice in my head. Like, you just can't get rid of that, right? Because you're a little bit like, come on, like, I could have passed that test. And I mean, maybe. Oh, I forgot you can't, like, manually detonate when you don't have the right gun out. Life lessons. And also killing floor lessons at the same time. We literally were just here. We should have just waited around, huh? So that's a thing that happened way back in August, and then I was told in October, when like, you have zero chance now to do anything about it. I was not happy. Let me tell you. I definitely didn't enjoy that, not particularly. But I guess it's, well, it sounds funny to say that it's in the past now, because it was already in the past by the time I learned of it. But you know what I mean, like, it's definitely in the past now, because I've kind of decided, like, well, if that's how it's gonna be, then, that's fine, I guess. I really would like to do this area, but I don't think we can do it, like, in a nice, clean manner. We almost have it, but can we run back and at least get the big guys is the question. I think that... Oh, the Drake is still alive. I'm honestly happy about that, because he's worth, like, a little bit. So, I guess over the course of the last 2 months, I've made one new friend, I would say. Like, well, I guess I've made more than one new friend, to be honest. There's like a couple of the people that I also like keep in touch with now, but I've made a few new friends, but also lost some old ones, which, you know, like Blink 182 might say that, well, I guess this is growing up, and I guess it is, but it's kind of sad. Like, I don't know, you kind of spend some of your life at least believing, like, I don't know, if I try to be a good person, maybe people will just be cool, and we'll hang out and you know, be cool together. But, maybe not. I'm not sure anymore, to be honest. I don't really know. I guess the fear that I have is that maybe in the future it's gonna keep happening, and I think the reason that scares me, because normally I'm like, well, who cares? Like, you know, if you end up, like, meeting awful people, it's better if they're just out of your life. But, again, I'm not, like, comfortable calling this group of people, like, awful, to be honest, because they're still all, like, incredibly intelligent, and I still had, like, a good time, you know, hanging out with them when I got the chance, and when they still would hang out with me. But I guess the fear that I have, and maybe, like, this is incredibly relatable to people, is I don't know where I fucked up. Like, literally, I don't. My impression, as I mentioned, is that the fuck-up happened way in the past. Like, we're not talking August, we're talking, I don't know, like, June is what I'm gonna guess. But I don't really, like, have a moment, you know, in mind where it's like, oh, well, that's where it went wrong, and in hindsight, it's obvious. I don't have something like that. What I do know is that, well, I don't know, but like I said, my impression is that it happened a while ago. It happened, you know, earlier than I've been told by other people that it happened. But it's just a hunch. I don't really have any proof for it. And even if, well, whether or not that's the case, the other option is that, you know, the fuck-up happened during that one evening. Which, the problem with that still is that... Well, in the one case, because it happened such a long time ago, I don't remember. And in the other case, I literally, like, my brain, chemically speaking, was not in a state to make memories of the event. Like, I don't remember what I did wrong, basically. I just genuinely don't. So because I don't know how I messed up, I don't know how to avoid, like, I don't know what to avoid in the future. Even though I would like to. I would like to be better. I think we all want to be better, right? And I feel like at this moment I can't do that because I have no idea what I did. So it's like I stepped on a landmine and lost a leg, and then was like told like this, like, you know, there was a landmine in front of my door, like the door to my house, and I stepped on it and I lost one of my legs, and the doctor told me, like, don't worry about it, like, you know, like, your other leg is still, like, nice and healthy and you'll be able to walk. I went through all the physical therapy, but, like, just don't step on a landmine again. But I'm just like, but I have no idea where the landmines are, dude. Like, if I had known that was a thing that could happen to me, then obviously I would have been watching out for it. And I thought we were cool. I realize now that this was a really bad, like, anecdote for the whole situation, but at least maybe it was entertaining. I don't know. It cracked me up, but that's not very hard to do, so... I don't know. I guess that's the one thing I worry about, like whether or not this might become a recurring thing somehow, some way. Even though I don't think it has happened a lot with me in my life up until this point, but you never know, dude. You know, like, I'm getting older every day. Maybe I'm getting worse at hanging out with people. Maybe I'm becoming more insensitive towards people and I don't even realize. Maybe I'm becoming more mean. I hope not. Like, I don't want to be any of those things. But, again, I don't think people decide to be mean most of the time. I think some people just, you know, behave mean because, I guess, like, in the given situation, they just don't care as much about the other person. There's a number of reasons why, you know, you can come across as petty or mean or whatever, and I don't think most of the time people decided in advance, like, today I'm going to be an asshole. I mean, some people might do that, I don't know. Maybe some people, you know, have a calendar like that. That's how they actually, like, organize their life. They're like, all right, this next week, I'm going to essentially be the savior of mankind. Like, just donating to the poor, listening to all of my friends' problems, helping, like, my neighbor move to a new flat because they asked me, and, like, I don't know, like, fixing my parents' marriage, and all this wonderful stuff. Oh, and, like, on Friday evening, I'm ending world hunger. Like, maybe, you know, they have a week like that, and then the next week, they're like, well, I've earned it, now I get to be bad. And then they I don't know, they just like kick homeless people. I really don't know. It would be weird, but I guess you would get like a more full impression of the human condition, right? You kind of get to see it all. You'd see the good and the bad. I mean, you do the good and the bad, really. Which I guess is all you can ask for. Socially speaking, it's mostly good and bad, right? Like, you mostly have those two things. Wave a quarter pounds, huh? Well. She's gonna scream. Oh. Very delayed, huh? But yeah, social stuff, man. I like to think that I'm very good at it, but sometimes stuff happens when you think like, oh man, maybe I'm worse than I think. And I think maybe that's true for everything that you do. Like, I feel like we're very biased about ourselves, and maybe we believe we're a lot better at certain activities than we actually are. I think you have to believe that, because otherwise, you know, you would never do anything. Because you'd constantly be worried about messing up. So, a lot of the times you just end up going like, well, I have to think that I'm good at this, because if I don't, I'll never get started on it. I mean, Killing Floor is like this. Like, I would like to think after so many hours in the game, I can easily, you know, hold a conversation with myself without having a couple, like, instances of dead air. But I think it still happens, and I honestly think that maybe that's fine. Oh, the one thing I guess I could, you know, get into instead of continuing to dwell on the real feel hours of my, like, drama in my little social life. I went back and actually watched some of my own videos to try to get, like, some pointers for myself. You know, you're like, well, just let's see how it's been shaken out. Because you obviously check back, like, some of it, but more on a technical level. I think it's a different introspection that I did before, where, like, you know, you would check, like, okay, is it, like, visually, like, at least passable? Is the sound okay? If I, like, just, like, skim through it, basically, did I, like, slice the things off that I needed to well enough? It's more of that stuff, and you don't really look at the actual content. Well, in this case, listen, I think. Because the gameplay itself, I think, is what you're going to be getting from me. Like, it's what it is. The quality, that is. There are better players of this game out there, people that have played the game more. I'm honestly not going to go to the area because, well, I guess we could, because it is just Crakes. I was just going to say, like, I just realized, you know, it's Firebug, I'm already max level, like, why are we even doing this? Is it upstairs? It is, huh? We'll definitely get hit, like, twice here. I should have healed earlier as well. Been bantering too much. Is that a guy in the doorway as well? Ugh. Hate the spawn points, man. Hate them. Again, probably gonna get hit. Like, well, we only got hit once. That's better. And that guy missed somehow. Imagine missing. Wow. Couldn't be me. He says as he misses a headshot. But yeah, we really don't need to do this, but I guess we could. And I mean, I guess we are. We're doing it anyway. And I mean, with Skrakes, it's actually, like, very easy to get them. We just killed a handful, and we already... Oh, that's surprising. I thought we would have, like, infinite ammo in that time, like we normally do. I guess he died because of the fire on the ground, and then, you know, by that point, we were already reloading. But yeah, so I went back and checked some of my own videos out. And, you know, to kind of, like, get an impression of, like, what I could be doing differently. And one of the things I decided was that, and the reason why, like, almost an hour now has just been me, like, talking about, like, personal stuff, is because it's a lot more interesting. Like, don't get me wrong, I think talking about what's on the screen, talking about gameplay, I really enjoy it personally. I'm a very, like, mechanically driven person in that regard when it comes to video games, board games, like, tabletop games. I love knowing the rules. I love understanding the way different things interact. But I also kind of realize other people don't work like that. Other people don't care so much about, like, I don't know, how you can make the most out of a gun. And it doesn't have to be the only thing that you discuss in a video. I guess if your video is about that particular weapon, for example, then maybe you have a good excuse to just do that. But that's not always the case, obviously, and it's a lot more entertaining if there's, you know, like, funny stories in there, just stuff that's relatable. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe the stuff that I just have touched upon until now is entertaining, at least a little bit. I do want to put more jokes in there, because, you know, in most groups that I'm a part of, I'm definitely considered, like, the funny guy. And I don't think that's been coming across at all, like, over my little YouTube journey here. And I'm disappointed, you know? Like I try to be funny. I would go out of my way to be funny. I mean, I do most of the time. We continue to get very lucky with the bosses, by the way. Because again, I think we've had, like, Abomination and Hans twice at the, like, by this point, and maybe one King Fleshpound, which still isn't so bad as Firebug. But then Firebug is very powerful these days, so I think we're mostly fine with anything. There's gonna come a point where we just die, obviously, because I'm mad and I'm bad, but we're not there yet. A day will come when we shall die, but it is not this day. Spoiler, it is this day. Like, there's no way I'm gonna play the game for like 24 hours. I don't even have the space on my hard drive to record like that much stuff, so that's another reason why we're definitely not gonna be recording like another 23 hours of this. Even if it was possible, I wouldn't do it. That's just, I'm not gonna marathon this. I know some people do that though. Like, I've read that apparently endless is false advertising for this game mode because it is not endless. I believe the last wave is like wave 272. I just want to know who got to wave 272. Like, how did people realize that? Because I think the longest I've been in a single game of endless was like 2.5 hours, and by that point I was a little bit like, I feel like it's a little much, you know? And I gotta be honest, like, you have no pause functionality if you play online. I'm sure, like, the people that actually got the wave 272, if it's actually that number, I can't remember off the top of my head. Like, I assume they did it in, like, solo, so that you can at least, like, go to the bathroom, which is kind of important. Like, bodily functions are, you know, it's not healthy to just, like, hold your bodily functions for, I can't even imagine how long that, like, would have taken, to be honest. Like, 200 waves, Jesus. I can't see, like, anybody to shoot to extend the Z time with, so we're just gonna place down some stuff. But yeah, like, how long did that take? That must have taken, like, over, like, a day, right? That's the only thing I can imagine. It has to have been done in solo, because otherwise it seems impossible. Well, I don't think I'm gonna be doing that, like, ever. It's a part of me thinks it's kind of a fun project to do. Like, in theory, I could see, like, yeah, it could be fun to just have Killing Floor on for a whole day and use your computer for nothing else and, like, record the entire thing. But then I think, like, that's you know, like, a day's worth of footage that you then have to kind of go through. That's a day's worth that you gotta spend, like, talking, at least in some capacity. You can't just say nothing. Like, that wouldn't work if you actually want to upload it. I mean, at that point, I would want to upload it, because I feel like, at least, if you're gonna put yourself through that, you might as well, like, make some memory of it, essentially. Although, I guess the thing you could do, if you wanted to minimize the amount of suffering you know, you would cause yourself, you could record the whole thing, but make it, like, a sped-up version that you put up on YouTube, so that it doesn't matter if you talk or not. Or, at best, put on some post-commentary. That's a way you can reduce the amount of pain that you would go through in order to get that. Even that seems like a lot of work. I guess, you know, screen cap this. Maybe, I don't know, in half a year when I just have nothing better to do, we might do that, but I think it's very unlikely. The project kind of scares me. It seems like a huge commitment. It seems like a greater commitment than anything else I can think of, like, in any other hobby that I might even have. Like, I can't think of anything else in wargaming. I don't know, like, it's messed up, dude. It would be tough. It'd be super tough to do. But like I said, the question I have is, like, at first people didn't know that, right? Or did people data mine when Endless got added? Like, were people aware when, you know, the game mode came out that it was a finite thing, basically, that despite being called Endless, it's not actually endless? Because that's like, you know, that puts a whole different, like, spin on it. Because if you kind of know in advance, then I can maybe see, like, okay, you know, you know in advance, you're not going in completely blind. And I guess in that case, it might be a little better, because at least you can kind of go, like, well, I only, like, right now, you're like, I only need to do, like, another 250 waves, don't worry about it, Mom. It'll be fine. But, like, if people just weren't aware, like, that's scary to imagine that someone out there was just, you know, they had their PC, like, running killing floor 2 for days on end, just grinding away on endless and going like, yeah, like, eventually, you know, like, I'll get the record. I wonder if people didn't know, the first person to get there, like, got mad when it just ends. When you get, like, the little, like, post-game, like, pop-up, and it's like, well, you know, you killed 1 million Zeds, and you killed, like, 78,000 large Zeds, and you killed, like, all the bosses. And it's just like, what? I was ready to go to the next wave. Like, come on, put me back in the game, coach. Did that happen? Did the guy, like, just rage quit because he won Endless in a way that you're not supposed to? I wish, like, there was, you know, like, a video of this somewhere. But simultaneously, I'm too lazy to look it up. And I'm also, like, definitely too lazy to make it myself. Plus, I think... like, Endless has been in the game for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years now. It was way before my time. So I think if I went out of my way to make, like, you know, that style of a reaction video, I think it's kind of dated now. Maybe people wouldn't appreciate it. This is probably the worst mutation, by the way, that we can get. In online, this, like, spells doom for medic most of the time. Although, you know, Firebug being Firebug is a lot better. Is that, like, 3 sirens? There were 2. Maybe I imagined the 3rd. But yeah, sometimes I think about these things. What would it be like to play the same game for up to 48 hours in essentially a single sitting? And then I come to my senses and realize I'm never going to do that. Because I don't want to kill myself with video games. Again, I thought that was 2 sirens. I guess I'm seeing double. Trying to do our best here to manage the big stuff. It's really the flesh and quarter pounds that are a little bit annoying for Firebug because, you know, you have the Thermite Bore and it does, like, explosive damage, but still gotta, like, it only does the explosive damage when, you know, you detonate it. So until you do that, the stuff still lives. Oh, and I never had this reloaded, huh? I'm surprised that that one was considered a headshot, but the first one wasn't. But whatever. It's the events that hitboxes. Like, I still, if you gave me, like, a .png file of the Halloween event husks, I still couldn't show you the crit location on this skin. On the normal default skin, easy. Like, I can point it right out. But on this one, like, occasionally I explode them, and every time there's a voice in the back of my head going like, really? Really, that's where the tank is located, huh? I didn't know. I don't know, dude. I feel like sometimes, you know, I sometimes get this impression with the game, though, that maybe the event skins, in some cases, were a little ambitious. Like, some of the sets are just... It's not that they don't look cool, but they are, like, weirder to keep track of. And, I mean, for me, one of the most egregious examples, and I guess it doesn't matter as much because it's not as annoying, but... The fact that Skrakes, like, have, like, a little lightning effect that looks almost the same as an EMP effect is really weird, especially if you have someone on the team that does EMP to begin with, because you're like, well, is the guy EMP'd, or is he just, you know, an event skin Skrake? Is he just doing, like, a random, like, shock animation for no reason? Usually it's the latter, and you have no idea. You might think, like, oh, well, they're EMP'd, they can't attack, and then they hit you with their... It's not even a chainsaw on the skin, I don't know what it is. It's a little frustrating. Sometimes. But I mean, I've gotten through the Halloween update by now, actually. I played it, like, online in co-op. I can put in, like, a quick, like, pause here. You can see, like, got it all done. In fact, I'm even wearing the thing that you get for it. And I gotta say, like, it doesn't match up with anything that I have, but it looks cool. It's nice and shiny. So happy to have, you know, collected that. I mean, the event was, like, relatively easy. I, for once, actually liked the new map. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, why didn't I play the new map? To be honest with you, because I forgot. But, you know, hopefully, I'll still get around to showcasing it a little bit. Maybe while the update is still going on. I think it's still gonna last, like, another week or so. Because, you know, again, pulling back the curtain here a little. Right now, we're on, what is it, the 23rd? Yes, the 23rd of October, right this moment. as of recording. So there's probably still at least a week left of the event. I can still maybe show off the map. And maybe even the weapons. I mean, some of the new weapons are kind of cool. They all have, like, neat designs. Mechanically, I'm not so hot on some of them, but... I mean, look, I've also only tried them online, which I wouldn't say is necessarily, like, the worst way to try a weapon. You definitely get, like, a better impression from the sense of how it's actually, like, expected to perform. But I gotta say, though, that in solo, they're obviously stronger, so maybe, like, some of the weaker guns that got added to the game are still fine for solo. I'm possibly not touching, like, half of them for online play, because they don't seem that great. But hey, they don't need to be great, they can just be fun. And I mean, it's mostly fun. The Piranha pistols are kind of cool as, like, a concept, that it's, like, potentially dual-wieldable pistols that shoot buzzsaws. That's kind of a cute idea, I gotta be honest. We actually got Kevin as a boss for a change. Do we want to, like, just, like, hit him with flares instead? Let's do the little trick here, where, like, we walk up to him. I don't think we can kill him. Nah, I mean, we could have if we hit him again there, but unfortunately, I only shot him the one time. I wasn't sure if I was going to connect. Still, I think we have a good idea of what we need to do here, which is, like, fight him with the flare, and then mostly go in with the other stuff. Also, like, we should remember that we have Molotovs. I forgot for a second. Man, this Z-time stuff is a little frustrating, huh? Like, we haven't been able to use it at all. Got him to stumble. I mean, we got him. There we go. We let him get away once so that we could calibrate what we needed to do. And then we did what we needed to do. I do have to mention that, you know, at this point, I think we're getting to the breaking point now, where it's like, well, we have, like, 1 armor left and we had 66 health. Eventually, we're just going to get overran, which is totally fine, to be honest. Like, it's been a good time. Still really enjoy Firebug. The only problem I have with Firebug is it's so strong that it makes me feel bad for, like, some of the other perks. And, you know, it was unavoidable. I can't make a video without mentioning it. Like, Berserker. Berserker is not good these days. It's very, very weak. And they actually adjusted some other stuff relating to Berserker in this update, which, again, could be the topic of its own video. But I want to get more into the philosophy of this, and this is a recycled conversation, because I actually had this conversation about less than 24 hours ago with my co-op partner, and I just don't understand why in a player versus environment, like, game, we have to have balance patches. I just don't grasp why. I don't get it. Are the Zeds complaining on, like, the official forums? Is that what's going on? Are there, like, salty Scrake players just, like, mad that they're getting killed over and over again? Because, like, I don't know, man. Like, just moderate that stuff, is what I'm gonna say. Like, who gave posting privileges to the Scrakes? And also, how do they type? How long does it take them to write a message? They only have one hand, man. Or did they type with a chainsaw? Because if they can type with a chainsaw, then I'll say, you know what? You can maybe look at their messages. Like, I'm willing to say, let's look at their messages, because it was probably very tough for them to write it. So it feels bad to just say, well, you know, like, ignore it. It doesn't feel fair. Although, to be honest, if it's the Flesh Pounds, like, typing, I'm even more impressed, because they don't even have any, like, hand. They have, like, giant, like, in this case, I think, like, balls, like, spiky balls. Don't take that out of the context. But yeah, I can't imagine. I don't understand why the balance patches really happen. And also, it's very inconsistent. I guess we should, like, do the area now that we're here. Because we don't have a lot to go. I was gonna say, like, let's just leave, but... Oh, I would have gone... I would have hoped that that would have been a headshot. If we get killed by, like, just 2 sirens, that's gonna be very sad. But thankfully that didn't happen. I guess the reason I'm a little mad about the adjustments to Berserker is because it feels like kind of a singling out of the perk more than anything. Because Gunslinger is still so good. It's just a better version of Sharpshooter, just does better in every single situation that I really can imagine in the game. It's great against the small stuff, even better against the bosses in my experience. It's just a fantastic perk. And it has like a relatively cheap ammo too. And the guns are all reasonably priced. Although now, you know, they have a pistol, like one pistol that costs like $1,500 to buy since the Halloween update, and you can still upgrade it for another $1,500, which is a bit ridiculous. And you can never dual wield it, which is very strange in my opinion, for Gunslinger, when like the whole perks idea for the most part is you kind of view the dual wield as the default. But I digress. It's still a little strange to me that that's a thing that exists. But I guess, you know, I don't want to complain too hard about it. It's just a little surprising, is all. So, like, Gunslinger is such a well-rounded perk, and so powerful, and then Firebug, obviously, despite, like, all the changes that have been made to it, is still really, really good all around. I mean, I say this, we're probably dead this way, but nonetheless. And then you got stuff like Berserker that is just not great, and it's being beaten into the ground. I guess, you know, it could be worse. You could be SWAT, and you could just not get adjusted ever, like, in a positive way. You could just stagnate. Like poor SWAT, where the best you can hope for is you get a reasonable HRG, and that's it. Like, I hope you're happy. You have like a gun now that it feels like it maybe should have been a core mechanic. It's not though. But again, I don't want to complain like too hard. It's just weird. I don't understand the logic, but because of my other hobby, because, you know, Warhammer is a weird hobby in that regard, like, you see some weird decisions, especially in terms of balancing changes in that game. It's like some of the stuff that happens in Warhammer is just weird. I mean, there's a little bit of a controversy going on now, actually, you know, kind of relating to this, where I think there was a member of, well, there were multiple members of the rules team that took part in an event over, I think, like 2 weeks ago. It was an actual tournament, and one of the head rules writers ended up winning, and the other rules writer that took part at the event got like second place. And people are now like, oh, they should not have done that. They should be reasonable, and, you know, if you write the rules, you shouldn't take part. I don't agree with that, by the way. But, you know, people online are salty. They were making some really mean memes of like, oh, like, you know, release the FAQ or just win the tournament. And, you know, people obviously went for, well, the rules writers in question clearly went for, like, instead of releasing the FAQ, just to win the tournament. I don't really agree with it, by the way, but it is hilarious. It needs to be said. I understand that, you know, I believe achieving any kind of game balance is very difficult to do, and it definitely, from like an outside perspective, it's very easy to get that impression that it's a lot easier to do than it actually is. But I gotta be honest with you, at least in Warhammer, I understand why they feel the need to try to make the game balanced, because you're playing another human being. It's literally like a 1v1, but not, you know, quick scopes on Rust. But, you know, it's basically you're fighting another flesh and blood human being, and obviously, you know, they spent hopefully the same amount of time like preparing for the game in some capacity, and I don't just mean like reading the rules or whatever, but getting their models ready and all that. There's quite a bit of like commitment involved with that, I guess. And I mean, you're there for a couple hours. If you just play someone for one game, it's still probably like 2 hours at the least, potentially more depending on the size of the game. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I can understand that you want to make the game balanced so that both the people taking part, you know, get a good time. Because it's both people. It's two folks. It only makes perfect sense that you would want both the people. Like, you'd want 100% of the people taking part in the game to get a good time, to have a good experience. And I guess the problem I have, though, is, like I said, the Zeds exist to be killed. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you know, this might not line up with the Zed Lives Matter movement that is going on in Killing Floor, if it is going on. Like, maybe that should be like a clan or whatever. Maybe it already is, and I just don't know about it. And now they're going to sue me because I mentioned them. And maybe in a negative light, oh god, what have I done? But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't think it should matter. Like, this game is about having fun, like, blasting these things away, and still dying to them, at least in Endless, because, well, that's not the only way it can end, but it's kind of the expected end state. I mean, you know, the Wave 272 guy, well, guys, I think it's more than one guy, like, notwithstanding. So, I don't know. I don't know why, like, I hit him with this. It kind of doesn't do much. Better against the Skrix. Let's just sprint away. I guess, again, I'm not like a game developer, so I probably don't understand the idea that something can't be like too powerful either, because, you know, you'll have like a problem. Is there like always an explosion in this part of the map? It seems to be, right? Like, let's test this, because I noticed that before. Yeah, what's up with this? I don't think that's supposed to happen. Like, I'm shooting there. I think we may have found a bug, to be honest. Because we can just explode that permanently. I think we hit the floor in a way that now there's a permanent, like, thermite bore stuck in there that we can constantly explode and make endless fire. And I didn't even realize. I've been in here over an hour and I didn't realize. I noticed it a couple times and I figured, oh, maybe, like, you know, it's from an earlier shot that had remained undetonated somehow, but I guess technically it's true, but simultaneously, like, it doesn't make any sense. Is there another point? Yeah, there's other parts of the map that have the same thing. What's going on with that? Oh my god, we're unraveling a mystery. The truck. We somehow hit the truck, and it's just now, like, forever on fire. I mean, we were here, like, a while earlier, so maybe that's why. It's weird, though, isn't it? It's free ammo. It's free real estate. I guess the question now is it like a visual error or does it actually work? Let's test it. We're now science guys. Oh, it definitely works. It absolutely works. I am not even doing anything and things are dying. Okay, this is... Yeah, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this because I feel, like, bad about it because this makes no sense. The thing I'm curious about is where... Because maybe there's, like, a third location with one of these. So far, we've found 2. So we have one by the truck and we have one by the cinema. Is there any more? I assume... Yeah. Oh, does it? I can't tell. I can't tell if it only works based on proximity. I'm pretty sure it still works, though, because we can still, you know, detonate, and we don't have anything out other than the things that are stuck in the ground. I'm going to assume that it's just those 2 locations. Yeah, it still works. It works the whole way on the map. Jesus Christ. That is messed up. I don't know what this bug is, but... Okay, all the other ones are only exploding once, right? Yeah, these only explode once. That's good. That's how it's actually supposed to go. Well, you know, I guess it's time to apologize because we've been exploiting without realizing, and maybe we haven't showcased like the perk or the weapon the way it's really intended to go. But I'll be completely honest with you. If so, it's been unintentional. I didn't realize until now that, and it's quite bad that, you know, we didn't realize because actually it has been like we've mostly hung out in the same like couple of places. So we really should have noticed, but I was, you know, kind of lost in the sauce talking about all sorts of stuff. All sorts of nonsense, really. So I would like to apologize. Like, I didn't mean to exploit the mechanics of the game. It's kind of funny, though, to be honest, that this exists. It makes no sense, by the way, for this to exist. I can't even imagine what caused it. Could it really be that somehow we shot through the map, and there's, like, maybe no code for removing a flare like that? I'm not sure. I hope that, you know, it gets fixed, to be honest, because if you knew how to cause this, then you could cheese the game with this significantly. Yep. Can we see the Thermite Bore is what I'm curious about. I don't see it, personally. So my theory of it being out of the map... Yeah, it's like below there, right? It's definitely out of bounds. It has to be, because some of the fire doesn't, like, get on... You can see the flames. Like, we can show the difference here. I mean, just a little bit, though. It's mostly the same. I thought maybe... I do feel like maybe these are a little smaller than the flames that, you know, were over there. Maybe that's just my imagination. I don't know, dog. It is weird. Did we kill Kevin because he walked into the Endless Flare? Honestly, he might have. We might be, we might have gotten lucky without realizing it, and we might have exploited without realizing it. I mean, we definitely exploited without realizing it, but... It's weird, because I never noticed that I could, like, keep pressing it. Up until this point. I feel like he's multi-exploding there as well. I genuinely thought for a second that even the flares that we placed here, well, flares, the Thermite Bores that we placed like there were exploding more than once. Are there two now? It's still the one, right? Oh, but there's like one there now as well. We didn't even shoot there. I don't think we shot at that doorway in a long time. I don't know what we're doing to cause this, but it's getting out of hand. As if Firebug needed another buff, we literally now have a doorway trapped permanently. I'm not comfortable with this. So, because I'm not comfortable with this, and also because it has been quite a while, and I definitely feel like we're losing a little bit of steam in terms of the commentary, and frankly, anything else I could touch upon would mostly like be something that we could also potentially do in like a different video. We're gonna just stand in this doorway on top of our flare and test if we can just win by not doing anything. And if we can at wave 36, then there's definitely a huge problem with the game. And genuinely, I think we might be able to pull it off, unfortunately. I guess we'll see in a second. Let's see, I guess. Yeah, this is messed up. It's also in a really good location, by the way, this one. And I have no idea how it got here, because I don't remember shooting at this doorway, like, anytime recently. This is, like, messed up, dog. Can the sirens at least, like, destroy it with the screaming? Nope. Nope, they just screamed, and it's still there. At least maybe the sirens could demolish it, but no, they can't. They just can't. I have no idea what this is, but this is very strange. I mean, it's only doing the ground fire, so I guess it's not as strong as it could be, but ground fire is so strong, though. And I feel like maybe there's more than one now. I think there's one out here, and we didn't even shoot out here. So again, I'm not sure what's going on. It's just hilarious, like this one is just a fountain of fire over here. Oh my god, it kills the big stuff. How the hell can it kill the big stuff? Like, come on, man. It's just ground fire. This cannot be this strong, and yet it is. This is ugly. Oh Jesus! We literally killed the entire wave without shooting a single like point of ammo. And I mean, even this guy is probably about to die because we're just dropping like fire on him. Oh my lord! I have no idea what this is, but it is incredibly strange. I guess I would have to look back in the footage. I might try to do that to try and figure out like how we got the flares like stuck in there, if that's what's going on. Is there like stuff down here? Because we fought like down here as well. I don't see like any explosions here though. Let's make sure. Oh god. Yeah, we got free armor and we didn't use any ammo. It's so weird to see on after wave 36 like a zero dosh like autofill. I was like, what? Is the game just broken? And I mean, it is. It's just broken. So we seem to only have three infinitely exploding points on the map, which is still really messed up. But I don't know what to tell you. I hope we get like boom and we just die. That would be karma. I have no idea what this is. I'm sorry for like just extending the freak out, but this is very confusing. I think we're gonna, you know. This is how we die. I think we're gonna let it happen. I think we have to let it happen. Like, we owe it. You know what? I'm gonna die to a wolf man. He can eat me. He's doing a very bad job of eating me. And we can still explode it while we're being grabbed. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to, but it's so strange. So very strange. We died. Genuinely, I think we could have like kept going for another 10 waves if we just stick to one of those positions, and that's messed up. That is very messed up. I can't explode it when I'm dead. That would have been funny if you still could. Like, that's the point where I'm just like, no, I've lost the thread. At least we stopped at a good time. 900 kills. What a nice number that one is. But anyway, I hope that, you know, maybe a different, I guess, style of video, because this was more banter and more like kind of similar to a vlog, if you will. I hope maybe that was enjoyable for you. It was definitely fun for me to make. And whether or not it really goes over well, I think maybe this is what we're going to be trying to do in the future, because it's just a lot more entertaining for me to make, to be completely honest. It's a little more personal. I don't know. Sometimes we might go back to the little bit more of the hard facts kind of thing. I mean, with the new guns, we might try to do that, but we'll see. We'll see what we do. Anyway, I hope you had a good time, and I will catch you guys later.